will now talk about some key points that may be relevant to for your consideration when managing the National Release Center in Thailand. In terms of our governance for SNOMED International, let's start with that. So it is quite important that all the members, including Thailand, are familiar with how the responsibilities are divided between different bodies and forums in SNOMED International. So that way, it will help you to understand what their roles are and responsibilities, as well as it relates to members. So specifically, it also will help you to be acquainted with the support and benefits that you as a member can get by engaging in those different forums. So let's start with General Assembly. The General Assembly is our highest authority in SNOMED International, and it contains one representative from each of the national members. The General Assembly is collectively responsible for assuring that our purpose, objectives, and principles of the association are pursued, and that the interests of SNOMED International are safeguarded. Then down below, you will see the management board, that is appointed by the General Assembly, and in that sense, members have the opportunity to nominate also delegates to board, but the management board is elected, so it's a board of elected directors, and it directs the association and has the responsibility for key business decisions. It has minimum of 3 face-to-face meetings in the past. Now it may be virtual a year. They can be teleconferences or they can be face-to-face. The member forum that you can see on the chart here as well is a forum where each member is entitled to choose a representative. There normally are 2 people that country can put forward. However, it's also open for other people to observe. When we have face-to-face meetings, the only limitation is the number of people we can accommodate in the room, but virtually you're welcome to invite other participants just for your consideration. And the member forum acts as advisory body to CEO and the senior management team. Also here in the chart, you can see the vendor forum, which is a group of experts from a range of different industry sectors, and it identifies ways how to facilitate SNOMED CT use across the globe in vendor solutions. We also have various advisory groups, and each advisory group provides advice to different SMT members on a specific area, and it includes terms of reference for further knowledge and direction of the organization. So looking at the role of National Release Center. The National Release Center is an official point of contact within the members' jurisdiction, so within Thailand, that has the responsibility to serve as the interface between SNOMED International and the national users and affiliates and other members. So NRC's responsibilities include receiving the international release of SNOMED CT from SNOMED International and making it available to licensees in the member country, as well as promoting and supporting adoption and development of SNOMED CT in the member country. Some NRCs also provide additional products and services to support the national use of SNOMED, and provided the core responsibilities are fulfilled, each member is free to decide whether or not their NRC should provide other related services and products or not. And for members that choose only to distribute the international release of SNOMED, the NRC can be limited to only 1 or 2 people to undertake the minimum required services. But some NRCs in member countries are larger organizations that may have other responsibilities related to SNOMED. They often also manage the use of other health informatics standards within the country. And that is up to each member to decide. So looking at the response, sorry, here we go. Sorry. we skipped the slide. So now let's look at some key responsibilities of NRC. NRC is required to serve as a primary point, as we said already, with regards to all aspects of management of terminology products. NRCs are also the primary point of contact for affiliates within member country, as we mentioned. So affiliates should be able to contact NRC for guidance and direction with respect to implementation and use of SNOMED within their country. And NRC should serve as intermediaries between the affiliates and the SNOMED CT community, should there be any questions or inquiries. NRCs are also required to establish and maintain processes necessary to distribute and license SNOMED CT and other terminology products that are related to it. This may include developing appropriate mechanisms for users. Sorry, could people mute themselves? Yeah, good, thanks. For users to gain access to national and international editions of SNOMED CT and related products. So also to mention, NRCs are required to ensure that any deployment of a terminology product owned by SNOMED International conforms to SNOMED International standards. And finally, NRCs also must facilitate feedback from users on SNOMED CT, including managing change requests. Now, let's have a look at the list of responsibilities that may provide a visual context of the full scope. Besides these areas, there are also a range of other responsibilities that NRCs may decide to undertake, but that is up to your NRC which you choose to include. This table basically shows you a list of possible responsibility areas. It's not exhaustive, but it includes the main areas that NRCs currently cover. So some of the areas are marked as required because those are part of the core responsibility areas, as you can see here. Now let's have a look at the competencies that may be required for the National Release Center, and the caveat here, it also will depend on the scope that you choose to cover by your NRC. So the competencies that are required for NRC are dependent on what services you choose to deliver, but most NRC staff should have a general understanding of SNOMED CT and also SNOMED international functions. So to follow core competencies, they would typically work on NRC. Some of these competency areas can be considered assignment specific, so they will not be required as a constant competency within NRC, so they could be like start and finish. But they are required to fulfill specific assignments such as, translation or mapping or development of reference sets. So, but other of these competencies may be ongoing requirements. So for example, if you decide to develop terminology, then terminology skills would be a requirement as an example. Looking at overview of the NRC competencies, establishing a well-functioning NRC is not a trivial task, and awareness about the steps that are required to achieve effective NRC are necessary so that you can plan and recruit appropriately. So it's a good idea to start planning from day one. So the processes that are involved in setting up and running NRC can be described basically in three phases: the establishment, rollout, and maintenance. If an NRC decides to develop a wide range of different services and products that support use of SNOMED in the member country, it probably would promote successful adoption of terminology. But it is also important to understand that NRC set up ambitions and timelines that are realistic in relation to the resources that are available. So members should consider carefully and define national vision for use of SNOMED before they embark on setting up resource requirements, because that will determine how many people you need and what their competencies are. So it can be useful to also consider a stepwise development process so that NRC can prioritize the initial initiatives that should be carried out immediately, and also set aside initiatives that could be scheduled later. So that means you don't have to do everything from day one, and you can decide what is more important. This is better than setting bar too high and starting too many projects that are difficult to complete, given limited resources. Now, if we look at NRC role in managing affiliates, so organizations that develop or distribute products or services that include or provide access to SNOMED must be SNOMED international affiliates. So this means that every organization and user in a country will need to have affiliate license. So that means that there may also be a situation where people sub-license. They would also require license for that. Becoming an affiliate of SNOMED International requires affiliate license, which is a contractual agreement between SNOMED International and affiliates. And members often act as intermediate agents between SNOMED International and affiliates by issuing these licenses. Okay, moving forward. So stakeholder engagement. So there are different ways to promote the engagement of stakeholders, but it's important to approach stakeholders selectively on topics which are relevant to a specific user group. So if the users can see the point and feel convinced of the potential benefits and importance of the engagement, they will be more likely to feel encouraged, to participate and take responsibility and to use SNOMED. So some points to consider: what is SNOMED CT? So provide relevant examples, engage them regularly, find SNOMED CT champions amongst the users. For example, you can provide information on how SNOMED CT fits into the broader strategy, and also engaging groups at the national level may be useful. Okay, looking at tooling, we did already cover quite a bit of this, but there are different tools that NRCs may need depending on how you plan to customize and extend SNOMED International Edition. So the tools that would be necessary for NRC depend on the services also that you will be delivering and approach you will take to delivering these services. So at a minimum, we would suggest that NRC needs a platform where SNOMED can be made available to users, which is what you're already planning to do. So it's like tool for distribution or a platform. Moreover, if the NRC decides to develop national extension, so in your case, that would be relevant, including a national translation or national reference set, tools are also required to support these tasks. So this table basically shows you various types of tooling that NRC can use to support working with SNOMED. Okay, looking at translation, we covered that yesterday, but just to briefly recap. So translating SNOMED doesn't necessarily mean translating the whole of SNOMED International Edition. So you can choose to translate parts of it to obtain, core set of components that will be used in a country. Another approach is to translate concepts that are to be applied within a specific organization or a clinical domain. So for example, cardiology and so on. So that would mean a more use case driven translation. So we can discuss that in more detail afterwards as well. And looking here is just some prompts for you. We have a National Release Center guide that is available online and you can explore it in your own time. We also mentioned earlier that there's document library and e-learning guide, and also we have vendor guide and other information that's available on our website. So you're welcome to explore that. So that is a very brief helicopter type overview of where to start. But happy to take any questions either